We're here to celebrate and honor the life of Brandon Gregory Tighe. And I want to thank each of you guys on behalf of the family for coming to make it important to find a way. And I know that there's those that are joining us. I got a chance to talk to Patricia, and there'll be others that'll probably be watching. We are filming, so. But thank you guys for doing what you can to come and support, to honor Brandon, and two, to support Nathan and the family. So days like today are difficult. They're just hard days. They're challenging. They're hard to walk through. And it's impossible. Part of that challenge is it's impossible to fully encapsulate someone's life in just a single ceremony. You can't do it. To somehow adequately try to express the highest of highs, the lowest of lows, and all those moments and relationships in between. You can't do it, and so it makes for a difficult time and a difficult day. And with that in mind, if you would just join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, fill us with your presence in a way that each one of us can connect to and each one of us can recognize. I ask, Lord, that you give us a freedom to celebrate with each other your son's Brandon's life, even in the midst of our own pain and grief and loss. And where words fall short, God, out of your goodness and kindness, please help us in our unspoken moments to find healing. And where our words lack, may our hugs and our smiles and tears express and allow our hearts to process Brandon's passing. In our lack and our insufficiency, we call upon you, an all-sufficient God, Emmanuel, and God with us and God for us, to be with us today. Amen. I want to encourage each of us in this moment as we go through and we spend this time together to allow yourselves to feel, to process. You don't need my permission, but I'm just saying it out loud for all of us in the room. There may be times as we go through that you just want to cry, and it's good. And it's okay to cry. And there may be other times where you feel a laugh that rises up in you. You see a picture, a story, and that's good too. It's just part of us processing Brandon's life and remembering and touching with those. And so I'm just going to invite you to be in this moment. I don't know what happened earlier this morning when you guys were coming. I don't know what your day looks like when you leave. But just to give yourself a chance to be in this moment for this time and just to process and let those feelings be felt. In a few minutes, I'm going to give opportunity for anybody that wants to share. And remind me in case I forget, but what I'd like to do is just bring the microphone down. Not because you guys can't hear each other, but literally for the people that are on Zoom or as we record. If you wouldn't mind, I know it always sounds odd to ourselves to hear ourselves on microphone, but I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to share either memories or just expressions on how you feel and how you want to express your connection with Brandon or towards the family. So, and we'll do that in a few minutes. I want to read a couple quotes. Marc Ribond, a highly acclaimed French photographer who is known for beginning taking photographs of World War II and the conflict, the tension, some of the contrast of what happened, as well as many other international conflicts and treasures and beauties in different cultures, had this quote to say about photography and photos. He says, "Taking pictures is savoring life intensely, every 100th of a second of it." That snap and that shudder, it's just taking that time to savor that moment and not just go right past it. Andy Warhol said the best thing about a picture is that it never changes, even when the people in it do. And many people, with their own variations, have spoke of a phrase a lot of us have heard, that a picture is worth 1,000 words. And when I was looking that up, it's literally in different cultures have different ways of kind of saying the same thing. It's this idea of the power of expressing through a painting or a picture how it can capture and then express spoken or bypassing spoken words and communicate volumes to those who see it. And this morning, Nathan and Melee have put together, and some of you guys may have contributed photos, but we're going to look at a photo slideshow of Brandon. And so we're going to get a chance just to kind of do that, to pause from spoken words, let our hearts, our souls just absorb, to savor the snapshots in his life. And it'll be interesting because we may see some things where it's like, hey, that's still, like there's a continuity, and other things like that's really changed. Wow, I didn't know that about that season. So I just want to invite you to watch with me and watch with the family. We're going to turn a few lights off. You did a good job on your slideshow. Brandon was a good-looking dude. I'm like, I need a little bit of Brandon swag. So, at this time, I want to give you guys a chance just to share. And again, if I'll come down on the floor, so you don't need to come up here, but I want to give you an opportunity. Nathan's going to share after that just some of his thoughts and reflections, but I want to give you guys a chance to do that. And again, it may be comments that are towards Nathan or the rest of the family, towards each other. So, but is there anybody that would just like to share any thoughts or comments? Over here, sure.
I don't have anything planned, but this is his sister. I wanted to say his aunt. You know, that there are a bunch of girls in the family. Our oldest brother, our first father, but anyway, long and short and skinny. Brandon came along. And Brandon and Lil were a year apart, and I think they shared a room with a bunk bed when they were younger, because we had a big family and we got to put everybody together. But, you know, he was always our fun little brother. I remember he went down to the bowling alley with me one time. I was in high school or junior high school, and I like to dress like I was older, you know? So I went to the counter and I ordered coffee, and Brandon was next to me, and the man at the counter said, "Ma'am, would you like something?" And I thought, oh gosh, he thinks I'm his mother. And I thought it was so fun that I could just, you know, play that role. Well, like Brandon, he played a lot of roles. He did a lot of stand-up comedian stuff at campfires and gatherings of people. Mom would do the squirrel and the baboon or the gorilla, but Brandon would do Yul Brynner, and who else did he do? Come on, he did somebody else. Yeah, John Wayne. And Brandon got into it, you know. But he never was pretentious. He never thought, oh, I'm a cool-looking dude. I could hustle the chicks or play games. He didn't have to put on airs. He was raised with a bunch of kick-butt sisters, you know. And so, therefore, he was acclimated. But he knew it was easy to get along with us. But later on, you know, he had his buddies in the janitorial business and whatnot. And he was married once before, but I think that was just one of those things in life. It didn't stick. But he and Sandy were really meant to be. And when they got married, before Nathan was born, they got married in Tahoe around February. And the minister was female, and she had Native American, and she did a very special, she said, I'm going to say a very special prayer for you two and your life. And I think she was trying to protect all the stuff in life that happens. Okay, I loved having him as a brother. He was out of the box, original. He could have been in the movies. He could have wrote comics. He could have done anything and been fine. There you go.
Thank you for sharing.
Hi, I'm Maddie, the other sister. And yeah, I just can't believe that he's gone so early. We lost 3 siblings in the last year and a half. Anyway, he was funny. Remember, he loved to tell jokes. He loved to get a smile and a laugh out of people was his joy. And he played guitar. He liked Chuck Berry style. And I thought I'd read this as what somebody else wrote. Do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not there. I do not sleep. I am 1,000 winds that blow. I am the diamond glints on snow. I am the sun on ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn rain. When you awaken in the mornings, hush, I am the song, swift uplifting rush of the quiet birds circulating fight. I am the soft star shine at night. Do not stand at my grave and cry. I am not there, I did not die.
Hi everyone, my name is Tao. I'm Melis's mother. On behalf of my husband and I, which he could not make it today due to his work, we would like to thank Brandon. I know he's not here today, but thank you, Brandon, for leaving a mark in our hearts. For the time that we had was very special to us, Brandon. We had laughters, happiness. For the first time I met you, Brandon, you were shy, but in the middle of our shyness, you brought brightness and laughter in our family. Thank you, Brandon, for leaving us happy in our hearts and being with us. May your journey be safe at home in our Father's kingdom.
Anybody else want to share? Sure, absolutely.
So I'm Tom. I'm actually Brandon's brother-in-law, and actually Lily was a year older than Brandon, and what I saw him with, I got to know Brandon, of course, through Lily, and the things that Lily did, I always followed her, especially with me being in New York and here in the West Coast, I'm always doing things with Lo, right? So one of the things that I always did with Lo was is follow the family, my in-laws, which is the best in-laws I've ever had in my life. And also Brandon was part of that. And he was such a character. I mean, I never met anybody like him as far as being so happy-go-lucky. So willing to help out. He was a very big family man, especially when it came to Nathan and Melee and also his sisters and brothers. Lily had such a deep love for Brandon, and I could tell because Brandon was kind of like the youngest, and Lil was like the second youngest, so they were a year apart. It's kind of strange how they're a year apart, and also a year apart that they both went up to heaven. It's kind of different, but what I remember Brandon is him so happy seeing us when we traveled to Modesto from the places that he lived, and us taking him to lunch, and he was just such a happy-go-lucky guy, and I loved him, and I know that Lil loved him from the bottom of her heart, and we'll miss him. Yeah.
Anybody else want to share? And Nathan, we'll have you, you'll come up next after, but we'll make sure everyone gets a chance.
Hi guys. It's been a lot of emotions, and I'm so grateful for Brandon, just his warm hugs, are always the best because it spoke more than words. It was, his hugs was like, you can feel how grateful, your presence were in his life and how much he loved you. And the hug was just beautiful, and that's something that I'm going to miss. And his crazy humor. He had jokes that were great, some that were inappropriate, but they were great. And oh man, and his love for chocolate. And so if you guys notice, when you guys grab a box, it's filled with sweets, because that's how this man was. He was sweet. And so, Brandon, I'm going to miss you. I'm thankful for you. Thankful you blessed me with my amazing husband. And so, yeah, and I know that he's up there with Grandpa, Grandma, Lily, Claire, nephew and Brandon. Yeah. Yeah, that's it, yeah.
And again, anyone else, we're not in a rush, so. And you will have opportunities, so Nathan and Mele provided some snacks with the idea that hopefully you would stick around a little bit and just share with each other and get a chance to feed you. So it's not like this will be the only time that you get a chance to just share stories. So Nathan, if you want to come on up. Do you have, how are you going to speak from the hip? I'm going to pray over Nathan just real quick. And the reality is his experience with his dad has been wonderful and incredibly difficult. And he has turmoiled with what do I say and what do I share. A man that I love, and I don't want to paint pictures that maybe people don't already have. And but he just wants to, Lord, help guide. And so let me just pray for him. Lord, I just pray that you would be with Nathan. God, again, I ask that we come and we want to honor Brandon. We want to share, but I want Nathan to feel freedom just to be Nathan. To speak of as a son, as someone in Brandon's life, Lord. And just that this would be a time that you would just let there, whether it's be tears or silence, but Lord, that you would bring a freedom for Nathan just as he shares. And that he'd feel that peace from you, Lord, that you're with him as he shares. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Dan, and just want to first say thank you so much, everyone, for being here, traveling far and wide, and for the beautiful flowers, for everybody that's helped out so much. To City Church for allowing us to use the facility. Just thanks to everybody. Really, I appreciate it a lot. I could stand up and preach sermons, but nothing makes me feel as nervous as I am right now. I wrote about 8 pages worth of notes, and none of them can encapsulate how I feel. And so I'm just going to let, I guess, my feelings express themselves as they might come out naturally. I'd like to say, first of all, I love my dad. More than anything. And I'm thankful for the family that inspired me to love my dad. Thank you for always encouraging me to love my dad past his mental illness and his incapacities and his addictions and his shortcomings. My family, especially Lily, has inspired me to love my dad past all that. And I wasn't sure I was going to share this, but I feel the need to. The last conversation I had with Aunt Lily was over Facebook. And I'd say the last big message besides the goodbyes. And I saved it because I wanted to always remember this. And I said, I was talking to her about the struggles I had with my father and how it was hard for me to have a relationship with him because I didn't know how to find closure from the things that had happened in my life, because I couldn't confront somebody who was mentally ill about the things they did when they were off their medication or they were under the influence of something. And she said to me, she said, yeah, I'm sure it must be difficult, but I'm really happy that you're making an effort and giving him another chance. The bad days when he was not medicated properly and in bad places, it got pretty ugly. I know things were very hard for you. I'm so sorry for all that you had to go through. I remember how bad he was too, not being medicated and doing drugs, etc. Not good for his condition, but so happy he's in a good place, and hopefully now you two can have a fresh start and get to know each other. He loves you so much, and I love you too. Those words gave me the courage to visit my dad more often. I get to have that dad that I missed throughout my childhood. My dad was mentally unstable most of my younger years, and foster care separated us even farther than that. And even through foster care and afterwards, he was struggling with his addictions. And I thank God that Lily stepped in and she said, you know what, enough is enough. And the sisters got together and said, look, you got to put him in, you got to get him to where he can stay where he's at. And thanks to that effort of making him under conservatorship and staying where he was in a healthy environment, it gave me a chance to have a relationship with my dad that I would have never had. It gave me a chance to express my love for him. And I remember Grandma telling me over the years, you got to love him, you got to forgive him. And I thank God that I listened to that, even though it was hard. I guess the main thing that I want to really say is that my dad was awesome. The person that was beneath all that mental illness, the person that was beneath all those addictions was the most amazing man. Intelligent, witty, had the best jokes you'd ever hear. They were inappropriate, don't get me wrong, but what mentally unstable person's jokes are appropriate? Okay, he made me laugh. And it's all he wanted to do was impart whatever wisdom he had into me the last years. And he was a great father. He said, I'm so proud of you, Nathan. I love you so much. All the things you wish your dad would say to you. And I didn't have to accomplish a bunch for him to be proud of me, but he was just proud of me for being me and making it. And I was so thankful for those times that I got to listen to him and spend time with him and give him Starbucks coffee. That's why we had to have Starbucks coffee. She's like, you better get the K-Cups. And I'm like, no, we're having Starbucks. This is for Dad. Dad's favorite thing to do when he was living in the last home he was at was literally have somebody push him on his walker all the way down a mile long down to Starbucks. And he'd get a tall, the tallest cup you could find, and he's like, make that thing black. I don't want nothing in it. And then he put a couple ice cubes in it and slam it down. He was a coffee champion. He was a coffee champion. That and a pack of cigarettes, and that he was the happiest man on earth. It's so sudden how he passed. It's so unreal. It's like he lived 2 years and after COVID was done, and it's like, what, you got COVID now? It's and it's just sad, it's really sad. It's really hard for everybody in here. But I know that Dad wouldn't want us crying. Dad would want us laughing. Dad would want us poking fun at each other. Dad would want us saying inappropriate jokes. You'd also want a beer, but we're not going to do that. But I remember like some of the great times we had is I bring him over to Millie's family's house, and it was so funny because he's like, "Oh, the ladies are so lovely. I just don't ever remember their names." And like, "What's Millie's mom name again?" "Oh, Tao." "Oh, Maria? Okay." I'm like, no, Dad. No. Yeah, all right, Maria, I got it. Yeah. So I remember that, and him with my father-in-law, and he's like, "Man, he reminds me so much of my dad. He's so strong, and he's so hardworking, and he's just so focused." And, and that's one of the things, the highlights that my dad shared with me, too, is he always talked about his family so highly. Everybody just was like his hero. It was great. We all know he has like some bad things to say. Of course, he's my dad, right? But he always viewed people in the highest light that they could be viewed in, and it was a beautiful thing. And one of the things he always told me is how hardworking Grandpa Stern was, and how much he was just dedicated. He didn't know when to call a mechanic. He didn't know he didn't know when to say no to work. And it's just the beauty and the funny stories about Grandma, and the fun, dropping the cigarette ashes in her lemon meringue pie and throwing a fit. My grandpa, Mike and his football when he was in high school and all that stuff, like just about his judo, and he loved his brother Mike. He ranted and raved about that guy. He loved Carrie, so thoughtful all the time, always thought of him. And Lily, of course, always thinking, always making the extra trip, the extra effort. And I really appreciate it, because honestly, it's what I can attribute to having my dad back. And to Maddie, always making time too, and she always was there, and always there for family gatherings and fun, right? Everybody gets together, and oh man, I miss those days. Those were great days. I don't want to ramble too long, and I don't want to keep you here for an hour. That's not my intent. But I guess it's, to my dad, it's like, I love you, Dad. I thank you for doing the best that you could, given your circumstances. And I don't know if you guys know this, but my dad he was a believer in God and in Jesus. And I will share this story because I feel it's important. There was one time where I was in seminary, and my mom calls me and she says, "Nathan, you need to come right now," and to Modesto. And I said, "Why?" He said, "Hey, your dad's in the hospital and his kidneys have shut down." And so I got on. I didn't have a car. I got on the train, I got on the bus, and I was like, I'm there. And I remember visiting him in the hospital, and the story was he OD'd on meth and passed out in the hallway and started having a seizure and the whole 9 yards. And I remember I just said, "Dad, if you would die today, where would you go?" He's like, "I don't know." And I just said, "Dad, would you like to know?" He said, "Yeah." And me and my mom got to pray with him, and he accepted Jesus as Lord and Savior, and such a beautiful moment. Me and my mom took him to church a couple times. It's just like, I absolutely love it. I feel so light. I feel so different. It's like Catholic church. You couldn't get him to not step out and have a cigarette every 5 minutes. But man, when he felt God touch his life, it's incredible. And I can attribute that a lot to how he changed, and he was able to forgive things and able to move forward. And he did attend church, here and there when he was in the home and stuff, and it really helped him out. But I rode some rough waves with Dad, some real rough waves, from hearing he's running amok up and down the street, walking around, going crazy. It's like that guy you see out there, you're like, who is that guy? That's my dad, But, I thank God that there is hope, and there's restoration, and there's second chances. I remember when I went into foster care First time I ever went to a church, the only thing I wanted was I ran up to the first leader I saw and I said, "Can you please pray for my mom and my dad?" I said, "Please, because they need it. Because if I have this, I want them to have it." And I thank God that He saved my mom and my dad from drug addiction and alcoholism. Because it was hopeless at times, you know. But I thank God I never gave up praying, never gave up holding on and trying to love Dad and trying to work with him, even though some of the stuff he'd say out of his mouth was just so toxic. It just broke my heart to listen to it. To hear him scream at me at the other end of the phone when he's locked up in a psych ward and hang it up on me and tell me all these terrible things about myself. But I thank God and I thank my family for giving me the courage and the strength, and I thank my wife and I thank my Samoan family too for giving me the strength to say, "Hey, it doesn't matter what happened yesterday, you got to love him today." And because of that, I had a relationship with my dad. It wasn't the best. The drugs took a lot of him with them. But I had him. And it really sucks. Because now I don't. Wanted so many more years with you, Dad. So many more visits. So much more time to hear about your stories and see you smile and laugh. You don't have to talk negative about everything. It's not an easy relationship, but it was a relationship, and a relationship I'm so grateful for. Just know that my dad's free. I know that my dad doesn't have to take another pill. He doesn't have to be medicated. He doesn't have to be tied down. He doesn't have to be injected. He doesn't have to be kicked out of his home. He doesn't have to suffer with addiction anymore. He doesn't have to have that craving for substances. He's free. He's gone. I'm jealous. I have struggles. We all have struggles. My dad struggled hard. And now, unfortunately, I'm really seeing that. And I wish I could have saw it when I was so much younger. But when you're a kid, you can't blame yourself for what you don't understand. My dad struggled so hard. So hard. And me and my mom rode the wave, and my mom wasn't the greatest either. But, you know, it's what happens when you get two madly in love, mentally ill people together. Right? It's a perfect storm, right? It's orchestrated chaos. If there's even a conductor, but you know, I guess I was the conductor and they were the orchestrated chaos. But I'm just so thankful for all the time I had with them, and thankful for having a dad. A lot of people live their life and they never know their father. They wish they even had a crazy dad, right? It's like, I wish I had a father that way, you know, at least somebody to yell at me, right? It's like, I'm glad I had somebody yell at me. I'm glad I had somebody to worry about. Glad I had somebody to pray for. And I'm glad I finally got to have somebody to have that father-son relationship with. And, you know, I'm thankful. I'm more thankful than anything that my dad is free. He's free. He's free from pain. He had pain in his ankle, pain all over his body. It was starting, and COPD in his lungs, and it's just glad that he has freedom. He doesn't have to be addicted to cigarettes anymore. It's just, it's awesome. Yeah. Sure. Aww. Thank you. Thank you. Amen. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. Wow. It means a lot. Whew, catch our breath. My encouragement, I guess I want to leave everybody with, and I know Pastor Dan is going to encourage you, so I'm not going to overdo it, is no matter what you've gone through with somebody, take the risk. Take the risk and love them and see them and visit them. Call them, even if they scream at you. Because when I did, it gave me so much hope. It gave me something to hold on to. And just love everybody you can. Don't take any day for granted. Just love them every moment. And mentally ill or not, clean, sober or not, give them a hug. Tell them you love them. Be there with them. Support them in that struggle. And that's just the beautiful thing that I've learned from my life, from going through so much struggle as a kid, from seeing people with addictions, through going through my own issues. I realize that sometimes all you need is just a hand. Even if you bite that hand, you need a hand. Even if you hurt that person, you need somebody to reach their hand out and say, it's okay if you hurt me, I love you still. And I'm so glad that I took that risk to do that. And I thank you, Tommy, too. I want to make sure I thank Tommy. Thank you, Tommy, for that call you made. I remember you called me right after Lily passed in the funeral and all that, and you said, you better go see your dad. Don't forget about your dad. That kind of stuff, it works. And it helped. And it gave me more courage to see my dad, even though some of the visits weren't so great. And I was just like, I want to make sure I thank everybody, that's a part of that process of healing for me. And especially thank God, and for allowing me to get over the trauma that was caused in my life and to be able to heal and to be able to forgive and love past my brokenness and not focus just inward on myself and my own problems. But I'm just really glad. And it's pretty much all I have to say except Dad, you're awesome. You're an awesome guy. You really were. You're so talented. Dad was talented. I don't know if I feel it unjust not to mention that. Dad was talented. He played guitar. He drew pictures. This guy's on propranolol so bad that his hands are like this, and he's drawing pictures, and he's playing guitar. You know what I mean? It's awesome. You know what I mean? It's like he's talented. He's gifted. He's funny. He's amazing. And it's so crazy how one moment and turning in a fraction of a second in life took so much away from him. But I'm glad that no matter what life took away from him, he don't got to worry about it no more. Right? He's free. He's free from this world and the chains that are here and the things that tied him down. But all that to say, thank you guys for showing up, and love you, Dad.
I want to tag on a theme that Nathan had mentioned, and as he had shared about his dad, and just I got a chance to read through the 2 different sets of notes that he had created, one and then the next, and just like, Lord, what do I say? And but one of the things that came out of both was freedom. And so as we were talking, he said, man, that's where my heart's at. My dad's free. And so I just want to share a little bit on the idea of freedom and what that freedom was that Brandon got a chance to experience. And I'm going to refer to the book of the Bible that's called John. And in John chapter 8, verse 31, it says, to the Jews who had believed him, and this is believed Jesus, Jesus said, if you hold to my teaching, you are really my disciples. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. They answered him, we are Abraham's descendants and have never been slaves of anyone. How can you say that we shall be set free? It's a good question. And it's interesting. One thing I've learned reading through the Bible is Jesus probably isn't the best one to ask questions to, because he'll flip it on you in a second. And let me ask you a question. He was the master of asking questions. But it's interesting because it's like, it's a good question. Why would you say that we could be free? And they're going back and they're thinking there's no reason for that statement. They'd never been handcuffed. They'd never been shoved in the back of a police car. Never been under lockup. Never been held somewhere against their will. And they'd never been slaves for this generation that he's talking to. So how? How would we be set free? And Jesus replied in verse 34, very truly I tell you, everyone who sins is a slave to sin. Now a slave has no permanent place in the family. This idea is he's talking about this, that, and in their culture, as they had slaves sometimes would sell themselves. It's like, hey, I can't pay my debt, but I can become a slave for a period of time. It might be 7 years, might be whatever it was to pay off the debt. Sometimes they would be wars that would take place, and instead of killing me, let me become your slave. And so instead of annihilating a whole people group, it's like, hey, they take some on as slaves, but it says a slave has no permanent place in the family. In essence, they could be sold, they could be traded. Sometimes even once they paid their debt, they would be released and they would go back to whatever it was before, but they are no longer part of that family. But Jesus says, so if the Son sets you free, you'll be free indeed. This idea that you may only be temporary in terms of how man deals with things, but when God steps in, he can do things for eternity. He's a game changer. The Apostle Paul wrote in the book of the Bible that we call Romans. He explains this idea in Romans chapter 6, verses 4 through 9. Paul says, for we died and were buried with Christ by baptism. And just as Christ was raised from the dead by the glorious power of the Father, now we also may live new lives. Brandon got a chance to experience new life on this side of eternity. Since we have been united with him in his death, being Jesus, we will also be raised to life as he was. We know that the old sinful selves were crucified with Christ so that sin might lose its power in our lives. We are no longer slaves to sin. For when we died with Christ, we were set free from the power of sin. Brandon had experienced exactly what Jesus was talking about, and these people said, I don't understand. We've never been slaves. We've never been captured. We've never been taken captive by whatever that was. Brandon had a season where he was taken captive by substances. The one thing I know without knowing any of you personally, I know we all have something in common. We all have sin. Every single one of us. The person that you put on a pedestal, it's like, man, I think that's the best person I know. That's me, that's probably my sister. Amazing woman of God. But the one thing I know she has sin. God's told us every one of us has sin. Every one of us are slaves to sin until something changes. Sin brings about a destructiveness in life and in our relationships. Sin takes us further than we want to go. Keeps us longer than we want to stay. It makes us pay more than we want to pay. But Brandon experienced setting free. This idea of what Jesus was speaking about, and the idea of what Paul was speaking about. That on this side of eternity, we can experience a freedom. That no longer is sin our master, and no longer are we held captive, but literally a new life, a new spirit can enter into us. It's what the Bible talks about throughout the New Testament. Jesus called it a better covenant. Paul called it a better covenant. That the same promise to be your God and that you would be my people. And where before I could post what that looks like and you could read it and do your best to fulfill it, he says, you know what? I did that long enough so that you know that no matter how much someone talks at you, you'll never be able to do it until the new life comes in you. And that's how I'll fulfill the better covenant. I'll still be your God and you'll be my people if you choose to be. But you have a chance to have a new life within you, literally a new spirit, a heart transplant that instead of takes over, it becomes one with yours. And new desires begin to come up. Some of the old desires begin to fade away and some new desires come up. And Brandon got a chance to experience that. Have you been set free? That would be my question for you today. And I don't want you don't need to answer me. It's for you to make note to yourself. Have you been set free? Are you still captivated? And if you're like, I don't know, can I ask you this? Have you experienced new life? When you wake up and go, I've never desired to go do something kind for that person. I've never desired to fall on my face before God. I've never realized just how wretched I am. When those things become, it's a good sign that there's new life in you. And there's a new season that's begun on this side of eternity that will continue to that side of eternity of freedom. Verse 8, it says, and since we died with Christ, we know we will also live with him. We are sure of this because Christ was raised from the dead. We're coming up on Easter, celebration of that. He will never die again. Death no longer has any power over him. When he died once to break the power of sin. And now that he lives for the glory of God. And I'm going to wrap up with, Paul wrote in a letter, we call it Philippians, and again it's found in the Bible. But Paul talking about himself, he says in chapter 1, verse 21, he says, for me to live is Christ, to die is gain. If I'm to go on living in this body, this will mean fruitful labor for me. Yet what shall I choose? I do not know. I'm torn between the two, this side of eternity and what will be on the other side of eternity. I desire to depart and be with Christ, which is far better. Far better. But it's more necessary for you that I remain in the body. Convinced of this, I know I'll remain. And I will continue with all of you for your progress and your joy in the faith. And Paul did stay with them for a while longer, but eventually he went to the other side of eternity. Brandon's in a far better place. I don't say that as a cute story, I say it as a reality and a truth. And it doesn't mean that we don't experience pain and grief from separation on this side, but he's in a far better place. He had his time where he continued, like Paul, his journey on this side, here on earth. And like Paul, he's gone on to the other part of his journey. We remain on this side, and I want to encourage you, as Paul did to those he was writing the letter to, be a part of other people's journeys. It's not easy. Sometimes it's really messy. I think Brandon's life was a picture of how it's not all perfectly. Sometimes it gets messy. But would you be a part of others' journeys and do so in a way that Paul says that would progress their joy in the faith and it would progress their faith? That would be my encouragement. And Mele, Whitney, if you want to come on up. But we're going to wrap up our time together this afternoon and sing a song. The name of the song is My Chains Are Gone. And it's a version of Amazing Grace that specifically for many of people that have experienced, they have a similar story to Brandon's, that at one point in time they were captive, enslaved, and then they became free. And so we're going to sing that together. And as we do that, as you guys were sitting, there was roses on your chair or flowers on your chair. And I just want to encourage you to come up, and as we're singing, one, to sing with us. There'll be words posted behind us. Two, to touch base with yourself. Am I free? But also, if you want to just come up and place a flower up here, and whatever sentiment you have for Brandon between you and him and your God. But we're just going to sing, and then after we get done, at some point, Nathan's going to come up and just dismiss us and invite us to transition. So I'm turning this off, so if you come up here and go to speak, just know I'm turning it off.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. My chains are gone, I've been set free. My God, my Savior has ransomed me. And like a flood, His mercy reigns, unending love, amazing grace. The Lord has promised good to me. His word my hope secures. He will my shield and portion be, as long as life endures. My chains are gone, I've been set free. My God, my Savior has ransomed me. And like a flood, His mercy reigns, unending love, amazing grace. My chains are gone, I've been set free. My God, my Savior has ransomed me. And like a flood, His mercy reigns, unending love, amazing grace. The earth shall soon dissolve like snow. The sun forbear to shine, but God who called me here below will be forever
All right. Well, thank you guys for singing. Thank you so much. So beautiful. Thank you everybody for. Just want to leave this moment open. We're not going anywhere right away. But if you guys want to have conversations or anything, that's fine. If you want to say anything to Dad, and just leave this opportunity open. I don't want to shut the doors, and if anybody has anything they need to get off their chest, or I want to leave that opportunity available. And we'll figure out somewhere to go eat after. But we'll let that be that, and let's just take some time to marinate and enjoy each other's presence.